Welcome to the RTD Morning Friday check-in. Hope everyone's doing well. And as always, running behind, trying to grab some last-minute articles we're bringing to your attention. And so hope everyone is off to a great start this morning. And as always, lots of interesting subjects worth touching on. I wanted to just share some thoughts on a variety of subjects and see what you guys are keeping your eyes on. So feel free to let me know in the chat what's new with you guys. And hope everyone is ready for hopefully a peaceful, relaxing weekend. So let me make sure my audio is going smoothly and let me know if the video is coming in clear on your end. And then we'll get into, I got maybe 10, 15 tabs open, all subjects relevant to, geopolitics, monetary, the financial world, society in general. And of course, we got to talk spirituality. I see, let me just acknowledge this super chat here. I appreciate you, Port Film Co-op. It says parts of the Bible being banned must be top news. And it's definitely a very concerning topic. But then again, I want to make sure I remind everyone that in the midst of spiritual warfare, everything is on the table. And this shouldn't surprise anybody. The degree of which things are ramping up is definitely concerning, but this is actually not a ban on the Bible per se. It's the contents. It's the one of the primary themes of Scripture that is problematic for the principalities and powers, which shouldn't be a surprise either. And so definitely we're going to touch on it, share my 2 cents on it. Curious to hear yours as well. But the Bible is not being banned. It's just the overarching theme of Jesus Christ and his own people, basically not want to take the blame for killing the Messiah. But then again, they don't see it that way. So you can see how in the natural is definitely is a conflicting narrative that is at play here. But then again, for my believers out here, those who know truth, the Bible is the word of God. But then again, if you're reading it daily, it should already be in your heart. And if you're reading it daily, it should have already transformed your mind. Therefore, you in time should be a walking version of Scripture where you should be able to recite and deliver the word directly. So this is all part of our spiritual walk with Christ to become a walking Bible in a sense, because we take the word in and consume it and make it our own. So it's going to be problematic for the future. But, without going too deep down the rabbit hole here, the Bible will be banned. All physical copies of the book will be outlawed and removed from the people's hands in the future, I believe, especially as we get in the midst of the tribulation period. So, these are all steps that are needed to get to that point. So everything is designed strategically to usher in that one world structure, which we know is coming. So, be of good cheer, my people. This is a good opportunity for people to bring topics like this to the forefront to incentivize believers in Christ to do a better job of sharing their faith, as well as reminding people of the importance of Scripture and the threat that a mere book with words in it poses to the enemy. The enemy is all encompassing in this entire governmental structure we're in. I was actually, reading this morning, and I was actually, Revelations, looking at the current Babylonian structure with the harlot sitting on the 7 mountains and, that whole theme there, and just realizing the times we're in. So, I get you for it. So we'll definitely touch on that. But as always, I'm gonna start off with some good news, because right now, when we have the ability to speak freely and to share good news, we need to do that. Focus on what we can control, not what we can't. We know what they're going to do. We know where things are heading. But right now, you have an opportunity to consume the word and to make it your own. Take advantage of that. So I'm excited to share the good news. And then we'll get into some things here. So I'm already off to a nice little morning rant, but had to acknowledge that super chat as well as that top news there as well. So we're going to get further into that. But feel free to share your thoughts and ideas in the chat. We'd definitely love to get your thoughts on things. And for those who are new to the community, welcome as always. If you haven't, hit that thumbs up button, show support for the channel. And the goal is just to, make it somewhat, some more digestible news from an alternative perspective is what we do here on the morning check-in. So for those who might be new, don't know, but I want to give them a heads up as to what to expect. I don't pursue the conventional pathways of receiving information or delivering it. I like to take it at face value, spin it upside down, twist it up, and then give it back to the people in a way that makes more sense in relation to what's factual and real based upon what we feel in Main Street. Because all this is about Main Street. Wall Street is literally hijacked politics, and therefore they've subjected Main Street to servanthood through currency, through debt, through everything in between. So yeah. All right. Anyway, but hit that thumbs up button, show your support for the channel. Now, also, I encourage you guys to connect with social media tabs, especially on Telegram. We do a good job of sharing thoughts and ideas throughout the day there. So you won't be disappointed if you join the community, because you get a chance to interact in real time throughout the day. So appreciate the interaction over there. All right. I don't want to bore you any longer. Let's get into that good news, and then we'll get into some announcements and then get into some headlines and see where it takes us this morning. Got to do a better job of being more concise and on point with my delivery style. So let me make sure everything is flowing smoothly. Got to always check the tabs just because things can get crazy at times. All right. So jump into it, man. The good news of the day. Let's get it, people. Let's get it. So May 3rd, a fresh outlook is what it's called. And let me share this with you here. This is, as always, for my daily devotional. I make sure I start my day off with some prayer and the devotional. Then I get into the scripture. Then I meditate on it a little bit, and then I try to deliver it to you guys. So hopefully it encourages you and charges your spirit, man. But real quick, it says a fresh outlook from Psalm 36:9. It says, with you is the foundation of life. In your light, we see light. And then it goes on to say, when you meditate upon the Lord, you'll see life from a different perspective. The issues that worry you lose their grip. The burdens that weaken you, God will turn to strength. Your viewpoint of relationships, tasks, problems, your enemies, and even your own personhood changes because you learn to see things, you learn to see them all with the Father's wisdom. It says, of course, when you first approach the throne of grace, your frustration levels may be high, but the pressures will dissipate as you sit still before God, who accomplished all things for you. After all, you'll come face to face with the one who is fully able to help you with whatever concerns you. Why should you be afraid? There's nothing that can defeat your God, who protects, provides for, and delivers you from all harm. It says, friend, true biblical meditation will transform your spirit, emotions, and even your physical body. So today, spend time focusing your attention on God. Surely he will provide a fresh outlook for your life and a peaceful rest for your soul, despite the difficulties of the day. And then the closing prayer is, Father, remind me always to seek you for every burden so that I may have your perspective and rest in your care. Amen. All right. So that's the ultimate word there. It is very timely given the concerns that people have in reference to the Bible being banned and, and things of that nature. And so put your mind on the source itself and find peace in the fact that you know how this all ends. And along the way, it's going to be bumpy. It's going to be rough. But then again, trust in the Lord. He knows what he's doing. Like literally, like none of this is a surprise to him. It may be shocking to us. But then again, that's why it's important to have a personal relationship with your Savior. And through that and the comforting of his spirit should definitely ease all the qualms and fears that people might have on whatever subject you're facing. So that's just a little something to give out there for people who, are in need of a little encouragement this morning. Okay. I don't want to be too long before you guys, but I just want to get to the nitty gritty of things. But before I do that, let's big up my people who are realizing the importance of monetary literacy. So if you haven't, as always, 10 quick questions, the Dollar IQ quiz at rethinkingthedollar.com/quiz. Links in the description. A great opportunity for you to test your knowledge gap from what you were taught, what you know now, and what you don't know in the middle in reference to the whole Federal Reserve System and the dollar in general. And ultimately leads to the fact that all dollars are not created equal. And once you understand that, it definitely will impact how you view every aspect of your life, because this is whole rethinking the dollar journey for myself. And so definitely right now it's about 58% overall average. It's been taken by people for years all across the world. And so just a starting point for more education that is also available in the description below. The 3 steps to monetary savviness, I like to call it. So once again, I'll make sure that's available to people so they can plug in information and get informed on what's going on. And then next year, I want to make sure I remind people of the opportunity to protect and preserve what is rightfully theirs. So once you know better, hopefully you do better. So colonialsmetals.com/RTD is a way for people to take their retirement portfolios and convert them into a self-directed IRA for those who are interested. So I want to encourage you to fill out the form beneath this video here, speak to the experts directly, find out if it's something for you, and take advantage of what they are offering there service-wise. And also, if you guys want to find out more information, there's information in the description below. And you can also give them a call at 188-5. Let me make sure I get my numbers right here. 521-2448. So you can speak to somebody directly. So just an opportunity for those who are interested. Take advantage of it if you like. If not, no problem. All right, let's keep it moving, people. Let's get into the good news, man. Let's get into the news. So I want to jump right into primary stories. Then we'll come back and look at the markets towards the end. But the job figures, man. I did a video, was it like a week or two ago, just talking about how the numbers don't add up. The numbers aren't lining up. And, depending on the numbers we've been given, it's all predicated on the calculations given to us by the Bureau of Labor Statistics and how they calculate and retrieve their data. And it's all been suspect. We all know the main economy is really been contracting for some time now. We've been in an unofficial recession for quite some time. But then again, the numbers never lined up. But now, are things starting to turn with the recent announcements of the 0.01% increase in unemployment, if you want to believe that. And then, of course, the job figures that came out today. Just things that make you wonder. And so just jump into that right away, man. Let me get myself together here. So this is what we got in the headlines today. It says U.S. job growth totaled 175,000 in April. So once again, these figures, 175,000 in April out of 300 plus million people, of which over 100 million people aren't even calculated anymore. And roughly 2/3 is actively involved in employment. And they give us figures such as 175,000. That's not even that's like 0.00001% of, total population that was just added to the job force. And on top of that, these figures, more than likely have to do with part-time or, side hustles. And, they count Uber drivers as employed now. So whatever, but take their numbers at face value. They're already extremely low. But then again, they're going to be revised down more than likely, or up. But anyway, real quick here, just thumb through some things here. It says non-farm payroll increased by 175,000 on a month, below the 240,000 estimate from the Dow Jones consensus. So literally, they were estimating 240,000 and they came up with 175. Like, where do your estimations come from? Question everything. It says the unemployment rate ticked higher to 3.9% against expectations. It would hold steady at 3.8. Once again, 3.9%. The whole labor market and all the intricate ways they calculate and define things have been changed since the reset started. And the reset started with the 15 days to slow the spread. That was a kickoff of the great reset that we're in right now. And ever since then, they've figured out ways to maneuver and quasi redefine things under the surface. Just, this is just the days we live in, man. But these numbers just, yeah. It says a more encompassing jobless rate edged up to 7.4%, its highest level since November 2021. So a more encompassing, so just the more totality of everything has edged up to 7.4%. Yeah, okay. It says consistent with the recent trends, healthcare jobs led creation with a 56,000 rise. Okay, 56,000 jobs out of 300 plus million people in the medical field is supposed to be good news. Other sections showing significant increases, including social assistance. So social assistance more than likely is a government job. So once again, the government always incentivizes people to come their way because the perks and the benefits and the pay. But 31,000 non-real beneficial government jobs. It's nothing to brag about. Transportation and warehouse, 22,000, more drivers. And retail, 20,000. Think about this, 20,000 in retail when I've been documenting in real time all the closures of Dollar Generals, and when a dollar store closes down, shuts down, and fires people, that would probably be considered the bottom of the retail sector totem pole. And they talking about 20,000 is a good number for the month. Okay. So anyway, let's get into let's get into what people are saying in the X sphere. It says here, summary of all the U.S. April jobs. So real quick here, it says the red hot labor market is finally starting to show signs of cooling down. The economy added 700, much lower than expectation. The U.S. unemployment rate rose by 0.01 to 3.9. I said wage growth is slowing down, increasing at a 3.9 pace, which is the lowest since 2021. And then the next one here, this is the real kicker here. Just looking back over the last several months, and you kind of get and recognize the theme and the overall trend is underway right now. It says job report release. April jobs number came in way below expectations. As usual, February was revised down. So we talk about the initial announcement of the figures. And then once we move on to the next month and month beyond that, nobody looks back in the past and see how things are always adjusted. And it's the adjustments which is more in line with truth. But literally every month that we're getting some type of figures, it's all about bolstering the current equities market so that the news that spins off from that is favorable. The markets jump and everything looks rosy and peachy and creamy and everything in between. But just look back a little bit. So here we got, it says 12 of the last 14 months have been revised down. 12 of the last 14 revised down. So that is literally the true state of the economy when you look at previous figures, which are all being trended downwards. So real quick here, what does this look like? So to the far right, we see the difference from the original reading. So the initial reports to come out. So going back to January when everything was supposed to be trending upward, the narrative at that point was, the economic recovery induced by stimulus and everything else between, but 517,000 in January 2003. Then we have what we got January of 2024, 353. So that's a significant drop within that entire year. But along the way, everything was revised down. So negative 45,000, negative 63,000, negative 19, negative 36, negative 58, negative 104,000 in the summer of last year. That is a major revision. That's like they were flat out lying. So in June 2023, the start of summer, they came out with some 209,000 initial jobs for the month. But then first revision, 185,000. The second revision, 105,000. So multiple revisions ultimately lead to the truth. And as we can see here, 12 out of 14 consecutive months of revisions, literally, they've been lying all along. And so just look at this figure here. As of April, this is 175,000. So just based upon trend, what you see up above, what do you think the first revision might be in comparison to what might be the second revision? Any guess? I'll let you guys, chew on that one. Okay, keeping it going here. And so as a result of these below expectations, we have a Dow futures surge, futures market. You know what I'm saying? So once again, just bad news equates to good news when it comes to the need to prop up the narrative of everything is peaches and cream in the equities market, which is how people value their current financial status and for financial health. And so, yeah, not too surprising there. So they say we now have a weaker labor, lower GDP growth, and rising inflation. How is this a soft landing? So I haven't really heard much about the landing narrative as much because of the whole stagflation talk. And for those who might be new, I've been talking about, we're in an uncharted waters, experiencing unprecedented monetary fiscal collision policies. So don't expect the typical outcome for anything. We're writing history in a new way now. So based upon previous events, if you were to 10x the catastrophes that resulted from those events, so like the Great Depression, Michael Pinto, I had him on a show a while back talking about the Greater Depression, and we're redefining the way things will look in the history books when we look back. When our great grandkids look back, they're gonna be like, man, how do they not see all that stuff coming? And reason I'm saying all this is just because I've been giving new definitions to terms based upon what I've been seeing from a non-economic, I'm just a average street economist type of perspective, but we're literally going to experience a hyper stagflationary event where things are going to go completely divergent in a variety of forms. Excess currency, assets crashing, and everything in between, all centered around debt. Everything is centered around debt. So anyway, let me keep moving. I don't want to bore you guys any longer. All right, here. So on top of that, just get into some other subjects that are important that I didn't get a chance to cover yesterday because I didn't do a stream yesterday. But it says the banking sector. I'm going to continue to talk about the banks because the banks is the driving force of the economy because that's what, the debt, flows through and flows from and resides in the deposits of the holders of the accounts at the banks. It's all debt based. So it says why hundreds of U.S. banks may be at risk of failure because of debt. And so real quick here, just give you some stats and stat. It says hundreds of small regional banks across the U.S. are feeling stressed. On top of the banks feeling stressed, consumers are feeling stressed, households feeling stressed. A lot of people are feeling stressed, but be of good courage. You know what I'm saying? It all depends on your perspective and your outlook as to how all this will unfold. Because for those who have little hope, I can see how it could be very discouraging. But then again, if your hope is in a source that controls and runs and operates everything, visible and invisible, how can you lose? That's just my perspective, just sharing my perspective. But real quick here, it says consulting firm Claros Group analyzed 4,000 banks and found that 282 banks face the dual threat. The dual, not a single, but two. Commercial real estate loans and potential losses tied to higher interest rates. So 282 out of 4,000 is small, but 282 is all interconnected to the web of debt that ultimately falls upon the bigger ledger that will be eventually impacting the Federal Reserve. Therefore, they're all systemically connected to the too big to fail banks. So if one go down, two, then three, then four, then five. And so first, we've already had our first of the year. That's the Republic first, the first Republic, whichever you want to call it. It says the majority of the U.S. banks are smaller lenders with less than $10 billion in assets. Most of these banks aren't insolvent or even close to insolvent. They're just stressed. So stress is enough to really cause issues behind the scenes, therefore leading to acts of desperation amongst boards and ultimately rattling confidence with depositors. So mind you, if you were banking in one of these smaller stressed banks and you're witnessing a trend happening in the banking sector in general, wouldn't that probably incentivize you to rethink who you're banking with, therefore putting more stress on these banks that are being subjected to substantial deposit outflows? Everything's interconnected. But anyway, keep it moving. All right, let's get into some other topics, man. Let me clean some things up on my screen here, get rid of some tabs here. And as always, man, feel free to throw thoughts, ideas, suggestions in the chat. And I'll try my best to get to some of the topics here, but I got a lot of tabs open. I want to try to get to them all. And they're in no real particular order, but just events worth bringing to your attention. So here we have Macron out of Europe, and he's talking about some things that is stressing him or stressing his level of governance model, whatever you want to call it. But real quick here, let me get this in alignment here. Forgive me. It says Europe facing a triple existential risk. So we had, with the banks, we had dual threats. Here we got a triple existential risk. So things are compounding up, is what I'm getting at. It says, according to French leader, a new geopolitical, economic, and societal paradigm for Europe is needed to address these challenges. So what's happening in Europe is also happening here. So if Europe is having a triple existential risk, then so is the U.S., because we have hijacked political structure, no matter who you vote for, right or left. They can't do much different but give you different narratives. We have financial fiasco. Our government is so indebted that Uncle Sam literally is just, he's no longer, it's hard to keep Uncle Sam afloat because the treasuries are not perceived by the world in the same way that they used to be. So that's a threat. And it's a societal paradigm. Think about these college campuses with all these paid activists and the border being flooded by countless and people who don't tend to do us good in this country. So we have a triple existential threat as well in this country. And so I won't bore you with any more than here, but ultimately their solution is, in order to defend democracy we need bigger government. We need government to get involved. We need to spend more in all these areas that are being impacted by these threats. So that's the only thing government can do is talk about how they can invest. How can you invest when you don't produce nothing? Anyway, okay. Yeah, I get kind of amped up. But then again, here we have another way of government helping solve a problem they created. Biden-Harris administration approves $6.1 billion group student loan discharge for 317,000 borrowers who attended the art institutes. So mind you, just back up. People took out student loan to go to school for art and were promised that once they get a certificate in art, that they will be able to get out of school and get into a job that has something to do with art. How many different jobs are there available in the art industry? So to me, okay, real quick, but then again, like the fact that the student debt model created after the Great Society push in the late 60s, early 70s incentivized people to take on debt for education is something that it may not be needed or necessary. But then in the 70s, they made it so you couldn't discharge the debt or, include it in your bankruptcy. So everybody is subject to the threat of having lifelong systemic debt imposed upon them. And then the whole point of this article, part of it is the fact that the Institute promised the students that they could get them jobs. And after the fact, they found out that there was no jobs to get in certain sectors in dealing with art. So people they've been bamboozled. They've been hustled from day one. But just this headline, they discharged student debts for the Art Institute on top of all the other discharges. So this is the best way to, literally, the Biden administration has purchased 317,000 new votes as if it's needed. But you get my drift here. So this is just some news that I find interesting because I don't understand it. But then again, am I supposed to? So here we got, as a result of the numbers given to us, whatever, and the recent Fed speech, here's just some more interesting analysis from Kobayashi letter. It says, odds of a September 2024 rate cut jumped by 53% after the weaker than expected job report. So based upon the data given to us, the probability of a cut has reached 53%. It says the base case now shows 2 interest rate cuts in 2024, up from 1 prior to the report. Because of weaker job numbers, slower GDP, higher inflation, that right there, according to the algos, predicts a cut this year. Where Powell mentioned that a cut is not necessarily something they're entertaining, but the market is pricing it in. So will they cut? Won't they cut? What does it mean if they do? Stock market continue to go up or crash, but then be reinflated back up. So yeah. So on Wednesday, Federal Powell specifically said weakening of the labor market could spur rate cuts. Market implied odds of a 0 interest rate cuts this year having dropped from 35% to 27%. The Fed roller coaster ride continues. So yeah. The Fed is the laughing stock of the century. And then on another note here, BlackRock is saying that $12,000 copper is needed to incentivize new mines. So following the mining industry, rather. Actually, got a good interview coming up with another junior explorer. So once again, as the commodity boom picks up as the result of monetary and fiscal malfeasance, the mining industry will face continual pressure because there's not as much development and investment in the mining space as needed to produce the amount of minerals and base metals and precious metals as the world will need moving forward. So prices have to go up. So ultimately, BlackRock is just reiterating the fact that right now, in order to really spur on this green new initiative and everything else that the world say we need, copper prices have to go up to incentivize miners taking out more debt if need be to bring resources out of the ground. So true wealth comes from inside the ground, and as of right now, priced in USD terms, BlackRock says it needs to go up. Therefore, think about gold and silver as well. Like, it's becoming more difficult to surface or to extract gold and silver out of the ground without going deeper, which requires more costs, more expenditures, more labor. Therefore, to make it worthwhile, the price has to go up. So if you know the price has to go up, if you get involved earlier, then you can reap some of the benefits in USD terms in the short term to put to use for spending sake, not necessarily saving. So it said cost needs to be 12,000 a ton, a 20% jump from its week's high to incentivize large-scale investment in new mines, says Olivia, who co-manages the BlackRock World Mining Fund. So once again, it applies to all metals and minerals and everything in between. So they all got to go up to incentivize people to take on more debt. And then speaking of going up, here's another interesting narrative right here. So this is from Bitcoin News here, but I was trying to find, populate this graph here for myself, but I don't know how to work the Fred calculator that easily, but so I just thought I would use this one. But it says here, M2 money supply turns positive for the first time since late 2022. And I've talked about that in a video, last week as well. So as you know, M2 bottom out in October of 2022, and it's been on the uptick since then. And so it looks like, according to this graph here, it has literally peaked its head above that zero rate that has been a problem for the world due to the stranglehold of the QT response from the Fed. So as of now, we got the first little green candle. So could this be a trend? We'll see. But we know what happened when this all was brought about based upon the CARES Act, this act, that act, stimulus checks and everything. This is a result of all that. So looks like as inflation ticks up, they're going to eventually need this to pick up as well to keep those markets juiced up and green. All right, here. So let's talk about just real quick here. I'm not going to talk much about it. This is a nice little thread here, but it just talks about the chaos on college campuses and how everybody's a paid activist. They're not really college kids and everything and the like, and who's funding it. And here's some graphs that were obtained from a lady by the name of Peggy Dotson, who is the CEO and the president of Urban Broadcasting Company. So she does journalistic work. So she does a little deep dive down rabbit holes to come up with resources to support her claims. And so here we got a visual aid here. It says, breaking news, a whole protest encampment was planned late 2023. Here's a list of all the top colleges that were going to be activated. Some international schools as well. Don't know how long this will be up before they take it down, posting everything I have, including sources. So here we have just a list of all the campuses around the world, around the country rather, that were, I guess, mentioned as being targets for placing activists to rouse up the actual students to join in, mimicking Black Lives Matters and what is all those other causes. Like every spring, summer, there's some type of group that's incentivized by the NGOs to get out and, tear up stuff and burn stuff, all in the name of some cause. But I'm thinking, like, people so broke, so cash strapped, why would you even have the time unless you're being paid? So literally, these protests is happening right now on college campus are equivalent of summer jobs for people. And I put together an article, basically highlighting how, the going rate for monthly participation in these protests is, was it 2,300 to like 6,000 a month, depending on your involvement. So if you're a leader, this is just me putting all this together in my mind and articulate it in written form. I can bring up the article real quick. Let me see. Well, anyway, so 2,300 to roughly 6,000. So if you're probably leading, like organizing and leading these protests or insurrections or whatever you want to call them on campuses, you're probably getting to 5,000 to 6,000 a month. And then the people underneath you are tiered off at 2,300 for the month. So literally I see encampments where they set up, like they enclose themselves in buildings and set up, in a campus square, these little forts where they're trying to stay their ground and protest. So they're setting up encampments for the month because they're being paid, so they can't leave or they may not get paid. So you have to kind of fight this through and go against resistance and whatever. But here's a popular university for Gaza solidarity encampment. So a little map here. And here's one of the supporting NGOs that are being funded by, of course, George Soros and all the other funds out there that are used to pay these type of entities to go out and find their employees for the events they're experiencing. Then we got just more spreadsheet here with, some Cash App accounts and Venmo numbers and Venmo names and all this stuff here, which, if it's legit or not, who knows? But we also, everybody who's out here and not literally out there because they care about Palestinians. And so here's just more information from quotes and tweets from Facebook. So she did a good job of putting all together all this data. But here, it is a little something that I thought was interesting. So let me see how she set this up. It says, look like a Black Lives Matter and Antifa playbook. Basically, listen all these things up above. And then I'm thinking, like, if I zoom in, you can see how right before elections, there seemed to be some type of spike. So this is Black Lives Matter. So literally in the summer of 2016, there was a surge in search terms of Black Lives Matters. And so we got 2016 summer. That's when it first started surfacing, trending in the media because there's a lot of activity in the streets. And then we had the 2016-17 election. So there's a spike here. And then summer 2020, prior to the election, it was another spike in Black Lives Matter search, meaning that there was activity on campuses, people, around the world protesting. So literally it's a trend that around election time, there's some type of surge and uptick in some type of disruptive movement that people are paid to work on and during. And naturally, if you have people who don't think for themselves, if you see in your neighborhood what is looked as a good cause, who doesn't want to be a part of a good cause? So you automatically join in. So you have, let me prove this to you. Let me share this with you right here. This is where it gets juicy. Watch this. Just to prove my point here. Let me share this with you real quick here. It says, let me get this right here. It says more than half arrested for campus protests were outside agitators, university says. So literally, you got all these people. First of all, here's how you can tell. If they wearing masks and hoodies, they want to cover up something, which means they're probably not students, or they don't want their identity shown if they are students. But more than likely, based upon the numbers, they're not even students. They're probably, like, as I mentioned, people who work the scene. They go from campus to campus, whatever, helping organize stuff. And he said over half of the protesters arrested at New York University in late April were outside agitators, a university claim, according to CNN. This says NYPD arrested 133 individuals in the Gall Plaza on April 27th, and only 65 were current students, faculty, or staff, the university said in a Wednesday news release. So once again, the clashes we're seeing are paid agitators, paid activists, paid. They're not even called activists if you're paid, because what are you really protesting for if you're being compensated for it? So they're paid shields is the better word for it. So yeah, but this is just some things happening in the news, man. To filter through lies, give you some truth in some capacity. And what else I got here? Okay, here's another. This is my last one. I got a couple more, but I'm not going to bore you guys with this. But this is something that we will hear more about in a negative sense. Let me bring this out. It says, let me get this out the way. Let me see if I can. All right, so you guys can see this. It says, IRS plans to increase audit rates of wealthy taxpayers by 50%. That's what we're being told. But mind you, it always trickled down to the working class, which falls between that 100,000 family household income to 250. So if you're within that range, somehow, some way, they're going to find a way to lump everybody into there. So just so you know, when governments get desperate, everything's on the table, and everybody as well. So just so you know. Anyway, but real quick here, let me share just some quick thoughts here based upon what we're being given. IRS detailed its plans yesterday to significantly ramp up audit rates for the wealthy taxpayers and large corporations using funds provided by the Democrat-backed Inflation Reduction Act that passed 2022. The audit rate of taxpayers' earnings more than $10 million is expected to increase by 50%, going up from 11% in 2019 and 60.5% in 2026. So the IRS plans to triple the audit rates of large corporations with over assets, whatever. So corporations, that's what we're being told, but we know it don't stop there. But how they doing it? Ramping up audits with new staff and AI. So as I mentioned before in previous videos, just look at the catalog. The IRS was supposed to hire 50,000 new agents. That's what we're told. But then again, it's good to say that a good chunk of the funding went into AI software, which they already have. And it's already been proven, public knowledge, that they have built software that has already gained access to everybody's bank account outside of it being solely on your bank's ledger. So literally, the IRS already got a backdoor into, so they know So it ain't gonna be no hiding. So just so everybody know. But that's what it is. That's what it is this morning. So yeah, man, this is yeah, interesting day of events. But then again, be of good courage, my good people. It only get better in time, depending on how you classify better. So you gotta keep better. You gotta classify better from the spiritual context rather than the natural, because in the natural, it's going to get worse. But then again, we know that this is all temporary, and ultimately speaking, we're just passing through this realm. But then again, we have a job to do while in this realm, and it has a lot to do with our witness and our testimony for our faith, not to try to heal the world, not to try to bring peace to this, to the Middle East. That's hogwash. We have one commission: to preach and to spread the good news of the gospel, which is encompassed in the kingdom message. That is our responsibility as believers in Christ. Now, getting involved in natural affairs is only right because how do we get the gospel? How do we get the good message to people in this world? By getting involved in events and affairs. But realize, outside of God's will being done, which is, we know how this all ends. Only thing we do is hope to impact human souls, not necessarily, disrupt and change and oust, tyrannical regimes. No, that's not our battle. That's not our fight. So, but anyway, good people. Yeah, enjoy the day as it is. And so Aces of Silver says that armed agents coming to our doors soon. Right. We talked about how, a lot of the agents brought in, they've been trained and outfitted with military grade armory. So literally they plan on having some shootouts. So once again, that's another thing. Like, literally based upon the invasion from the border, which are a lot of Chinese and foreign military age men that will be outfitted and suited with ammunition, everything in between. Because just real quick, I was listening to a video. Let me share this video with you yesterday. This is from Tim Thibodeau, who does a good job, and he's covering more well-rounded subjects, which make it really worth checking out. But he was actually interviewing a guy who I'm not familiar with his work, but he seems to be a individual in the space. But he was talking about him and his son went down to Central America, and they documented in real time what they saw. So here's a video here for those. This is just an excerpt from a full interview, but it says America is likely being invaded by hostiles, warning on the migrant crisis. Brett Weinstein. And so he literally, in this little 30-minute clip here, talked about what he saw and his potential clash with Chinese immigrants that were housed in special grounds. They were separated from the traditional immigrants coming from Africa and Europe and whatever. But he said there was something different about the Chinese immigrants that were that he noticed along his pathway. He said they were very hostile. They were not they were not engaging in the typical manner that people who are coming to a land for help would usually be or need to be if you're interacting with individuals in the country that you're going to, meaning that they spoke English. And he was saying that literally you can tell they were all certain age range. And then he went even so much to say that, the Chinese government with their one-child policy has bred a special section of the population, i.e. this current 20-year generation, where it's 10 to 20 times more men than women. And he was just, sharing his thoughts on how if you increase the population of male figures minus women, that right there breeds a certain breed of men that don't have much connection with the ideas of having a family, having children, having the typical aspirations that a man would have, because they don't have that. And so it incentivizes them to go look for and to or obey directions given by the government of disconnecting them from the motherland, to where they can go to a foreign land without anything holding them back at home, i.e. family, friends, because they are pursuing what's in the best interest of themselves or their government. So he was basically saying that it's possible that China, They bred an entire generation of men for this moment in time, and we're witnessing them come over bit by bit with incentives and instructions, not in the best interest of our country, but more so for the Chinese CCP, because, and this is just me thinking it through. It's like, okay, if China literally is one of our greatest debtors, they have been positioned as a leading nation for the development of this next multipolar world, which will be government down and not people up, the way that democracy, republic is supposed to be. And so literally, because our military has been hollowed out, and our military, once they realized that our government was actually trying to do us harm, would automatically not defend the government, but more likely join in with the people. So our military has a direct connection emotionally, physically, and spiritually to defend the Constitution. So if you kill off the military, which they did with, whatever, and you fire the top minds and generals in our military, which Obama did. So right now we have a generation of military people who have no real war or training for combat, because all the vets, Iraqi vets, and all the military vets, they've all retired since then. So what he's saying is, by incentivizing young Asian men to come in, they literally could put on suits and armory and operate on behalf of the U.S. government against the American people and the CCP in our country, to where we can have streets full of UN or Chinese-led individuals defending their interests, but defending it against us. And this is supposed to be our land. So long-winded, drawn out thing there, but go check this out if you guys are interested. But that's just, my little 2 cents on that. But yeah, everything's strategically done. Nothing's by accident. And so there's a reason why the borders are open. We know, and, God forbid the timing of this, but it's good to say we're going to find out at some point. So I don't know, man. I'll leave it at that. But anyway, people, enjoy your weekend, and have fun this weekend. Especially if you're in an area where you get good weather. Yeah, take advantage of that. Get out in the sun. Let the sun, you absorb some of that vitamin D. Put your feet in the grass, and just let your body be recharged and well balanced with Mother Earth and all that good stuff. Anyway, see you guys later.